There is a hidden learning disability that affects more than 21 million people in the US alone. It usually goes undetected, or worse, it gets misdiagnosed as something else. Sometimes as ADHD, sometimes as dyslexia, sometimes as behavioral problem, or just plain laziness. But it is none of those. It just masquerades as them, creating confusion in the minds of those who suffer from it and those who love them. And as long as it goes undetected, the children and adults possessed by it live in an invisible prison in their own minds. It is draining their lifeblood, but no one can tell. And for those in its grip, they don't even understand what's going on themselves. They remain imprisoned by the confusion of their world until someone sets them free. Yet, once you see the signs for what they are, this learning difficulty is straightforward to spot. And there are even simple systems for treating it. Techniques that anyone with just a little bit of knowledge can do. In this video, I will reveal what this widespread but rarely diagnosed learning disability is and how it affects academics and everyday life. You will learn why it is often misdiagnosed and how to easily spot it. Are you punishing your child for being lazy, unnecessarily medicating for ADHD, blaming the poor academics on dyslexia, or even beating yourself up for something that is not your fault? Let's find out. But first, what happens if children grow into adults without ever figuring out what the actual problem is? That's what happened to Jack.
How will I tell Sally the bad news? We just got engaged. It was my first relationship that stuck. She won't be happy to be engaged to an unemployed guy with 0 opportunities left. I know I'll never find another job. And even worse, Hank and Carlos could have been killed. How could I have been so stupid?
When Jack heard the crash, he just knew it was his fault. He knew something terrible had just happened. As the dust settled, he was slowly able to make it out. The wall was gone, just debris. Then he heard it. It sounded like Carlos screaming in pain. Yes, it was. And Hank, too. Steve, the supervisor, bolted from his office, was running towards the scene. As he ran by Jack, he yelled,
"I told you not to have the guys anywhere near that wall. Who authorized work on the south wall? I specifically ordered everyone to stop work there."
I did. I thought we were just dealing with a minor fix.
Minor fix? Jack, didn't you hear what I said? I explicitly told everyone to stop working on that wall due to a structural fault. You've compromised the safety of your own team.
Jack was put on leave, but knew he'd be fired after the internal investigation.
Jack had always had trouble following instructions. He didn't know why. Secretly, he thought he lacked intelligence, and since he had done poorly in school, that seemed to verify his hypothesis. And since he couldn't hold down a job, well, that didn't help either. His self-esteem was already in the gutter, and now this? It's not uncommon for adults like Jack to go through life not knowing what is causing their problems. They develop coping strategies, but these strategies are often not healthy. Avoidance is typical, especially avoiding jobs where they think they may have challenges, or people might perceive them as stupid. And relationships, when communication is difficult, connection is nearly impossible. Imagine not only not understanding what is said, but also missing out on the nuances such as tone and pitch. A relationship killer. Jack didn't get the help he needed as a child, so he went through life feeling stupid and unworthy, when the solution could have been so simple. When the problem is eliminated, people say they feel like they were released from a prison they didn't know they were in. Their world changed. Their lives changed. Let's dive in deeper and discover the 3 underlying causes that make up this struggle. The first of which is illustrated in Lily's story.
Wow, Lily, if you're going to be at a party, you should at least try to be fun.
I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, don't get lost in there. Wayward Whittle-Why-Wee, lost in the lavatory. Oh, did I use too big of words for you, Whittle-Why-Wee? Oh, poor Whittle-Why-Wee.
Lily couldn't help but feel like an outsider looking in, disconnected from her classmates, who seemed to navigate social interactions effortlessly. Lily pondered what had gone wrong, how a moment of laughter and camaraderie had turned into an experience of isolation and embarrassment. Lily didn't understand why she was struggling in these situations. Her difficulty following conversations and her limited vocabulary caused some people to think that she had dyslexia. Her social awkwardness and her heightened anxiety made others guess it was autism, but it was neither. Lily wasn't good at understanding jokes, and certainly could not tell them well. When she asked that they were explained, they of course lost their funniness. She sometimes misinterpreted words or phrases, especially when there was a background noise or when the conversations were fast-paced. She often asked that things be repeated, but by then the conversation had moved on, making her seem socially awkward. Lily often missed the nuances of conversation, causing her parents to worry that she might be slightly autistic. Her teacher noticed her poor spelling and difficulty decoding words and thought she might have dyslexia. Truth is, she was neither, and all of these problems were rooted in one missing skill. What was really going on? She was experiencing difficulty in a processing skill called auditory closure. This means her brain was not filling in the missing parts of what was not heard, a skill most people have that they don't even notice. To Lily, things sometimes sounded like this.
Hey Lily, would you take the dog for a walk to the park?
And Lily might have interpreted that as,
Hey Lily, would you take the doll for a wall to the park?
auditory closure is a processing skill that most people do effortlessly and without even noticing they're doing it. If you don't hear part of a word, your brain just effortlessly fills it in. Our brains are doing this all the time. It's a skill we develop as we grow up. But if it doesn't develop well, it leads to trouble like Lily experienced. What Lily experienced is just the first part of what can go wrong. The second issue is something more like this.
Why can't you just pay attention? It's like you're not even trying.
I'm trying, Dad, I really am.
Tim was unable to articulate the deep-seated struggle he was experiencing. He wished he could explain that the world inside his head felt like a radio tuned to a garbled pig Latin station. Tim's challenges made it difficult to focus and remember things. Nobody noticed he actually was trying very hard. Tim wanted to do well and to please his parents.
Your grades are abysmal, Tim. Even your teacher says all you do is daydream. Do you understand how serious this is?
In a home filled with tension and disappointment, Tim continued to struggle, his parents increasingly frustrated by his lack of academic progress and apparent inattentiveness. What nobody understood was that Tim wasn't lazy or distracted. He was struggling with an undiagnosed condition that made tasks like note-taking, reading comprehension, and even social interaction daunting challenges.
Your notebook is almost empty. You're not even taking notes. Obviously, you're not putting in the effort.
Tim was trying as hard as he could. He was exhausted, but no matter what he did, he had difficulty understanding his teacher's lectures. To Tim, the obvious answer was he must be stupid. His self-esteem plummeted. The world saw him as a lazy daydreamer. The reality was that Tim's problems were the symptoms of an undiagnosed condition hiding in plain sight. And nobody even considered that may be the problem. They just assumed.
The underlying reason for Tim's issues was not laziness. It was not that Tim was not paying attention. Tim was experiencing difficulty in auditory memory. Auditory memory is the ability to take in information that is presented orally, process that information, store it in one's mind, and then recall what one has heard. This skill is crucial for various aspects of learning, such as following instructions, understanding complex sentences, and remembering details for tests. It is the second component of this often missed condition. Tim's world would feel something like this.
A teacher might say, after school, we have soccer practice at 4 p.m. Then at 5:30 p.m., we'll go to the library to work on our project. And don't forget, we need to bring our science books tomorrow for the lab.
So we have something at the library after school. And I think we need books for something tomorrow? Oh, and was there practice or a game today? I can't remember what time.
Have you ever heard anyone relay back information like that? It's a terrible struggle for them, all because of a weakness in auditory memory. And with a bit of work, we can strengthen auditory memory just like a muscle. Now, there's one more issue to cover. Let's get to it.
At 9 years old, Jamie was a whirlwind of energy and emotion, but he had been branded as a problem child at school. Teachers cited his impulsivity, inattentiveness, and hyperactivity, and doctors had diagnosed him with ADHD, yet something didn't quite add up.
Jamie, can you please set the table for dinner?
Pet the fable? We don't have a fable, Mom.
Michelle wondered why Jamie always seemed to misunderstand her. He had started medication for ADHD, but it didn't seem to make a difference. His teacher, Mrs. Allen, was also exasperated. She had tried various techniques to get Jamie to focus, but following instructions was still a big issue for him.
Jamie, please get your math book from the blue shelf.
Jamie often returned with a history book from the green shelf instead. His classmates would laugh, and Jamie would shrug it off, pretending he didn't care. But deep inside, he was a mix of confusion and embarrassment. The most awkward moments for Jamie were during conversations with his friends. At recess, he found it hard to fit in. Words seemed to jumble in his ears, and he often misinterpreted what was being said.
Hey, Jamie, want to play soccer with us? Lock or fuss, what do you mean?
His mispronunciations of words were legendary at home and school. He called spaghetti pascati and helicopter heplicopter. Although they were seen as endearing and cute when he was younger, they were now becoming a cause for concern. Yet, no one thought of it as a clue pointing to something other than ADHD. Jamie's life was a series of misunderstandings and incorrect guesses. He often felt like he was on an island, surrounded by a sea of confusing sounds and expressions. His symptoms were labeled as behavioral issues, and the underlying cause went unnoticed. Both his parents and teachers interpreted Jamie's actions as defiance or inattention, never suspecting that the world sounded different to him, that every instruction was like solving a puzzle where the pieces didn't fit.
Jamie was suffering from auditory discrimination. Auditory discrimination is the ability to notice, compare, and distinguish the distinct and separate sounds in words. This skill is crucial for understanding language, following directions, and social interaction. Let's listen to an example.
What Jamie heard, "Can you help me with my hamwork?" when what was said was, "Can you help me with my homework?" What Jamie heard, "The brick clown socks jump over the daisy log," instead of "The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog." What Jamie heard, "Crisper the nerd swiftly and nearly," instead of "Whisper the words softly and clearly." What Jamie heard, "Let's bake the bean sprout," instead of "Let's take the scenic route."
That would be a confusing world to live in, right? So what does all of this add up to? And if Jack, Lily, Tim, and Jamie were someone you cared for, what would you do? These three problems, difficulties in auditory closure, auditory memory, and auditory discrimination, are the hallmarks of auditory processing disorder, or APD, a condition that is estimated to plague more than 40% of those with learning challenges, yet usually goes undiagnosed. It is not a hearing problem. It will not show up on a hearing test. It's a problem in the way the brain processes the sounds. It's like a game of telephone gone wrong, with that game starting at the ears and ending at the brain. Can you see how APD could have insidiously sabotaged Jack's employment, or be right there in the middle of his relationships, destroying the connection between him and his heartthrob, or how it could have been right there with Lily at the party, turning her into an outcast, making her seem like she was dyslexic or autistic, or causing Tim to seem lazy to everyone around him, or disguising itself as ADHD in Jamie. If one of them were your loved one, or even you, what would you do? I can think of three things. The first would be to hit that like and subscribe below. That way, you are helping get this info out there for all the Jacks, Lilies, Tims, and Jamies who need this. The second thing would be to look at the description of this video. There may be clues there. And the third thing, remember how I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this learning struggle could affect adults and children unpredictably. But there are simple things you can do to make life easier for them, or you. Well, You can learn those and dive deep into the solution in this video right here.